West Virginia is in a bad spot. Really bad spot. As y'all can see, I'm wearing black tonight. What does that mean? That means tonight it's business. We're not here to make anybody feel all warm and fuzzy, tell you everything you want to hear, tell you everything's going to be all right. West Virginia's going to be fine. We're going to rebound, stuff like that. That's not what tonight's about. Tonight's about addressing the issue at hand. West Virginia's in a spot in college football in a place that I've never seen before. Never. And I've heard from some of the old timers about the teams before Don Nehlen, Frank Cignotti, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly, back in the late 70s, mid to late 70s, some terrible, terrible teams for West Virginia. I wasn't alive. I was born in 82. So in my lifetime, this is probably the lowest I've ever seen West Virginia football. Not necessarily the worst team I've ever seen at West Virginia football. There's probably been a few worse teams that I've seen, but those teams were usually coming off of a great season and we lost a lot of talent, or we got a new coach and it was the first year. First year of Rich Rod was terrible, but he went on to do great things. None of that is what's going on here. This is year 4. Halfway through year 4, actually. Halfway through year 4, and West Virginia is absolute garbage. And it's mind-boggling. Very mind-boggling. I could understand it if, this was the 2019 team where the cupboard was bare. And I'm being honest. I used that excuse for far too long. The first year you could use that excuse because the cupboard really was bare in 2019. And I do think that Neil Brown overachieved with that particular team. But in year 4, this team looks worse than that team, and we actually have more talent. It is absolutely mind-boggling. It makes no sense whatsoever. I don't understand it at all. There's no excuse that anybody can give at this point in time that I'll buy. Oh, yeah, you got a point. Yeah, I didn't think about that. No, all that is out of the window. Past 3 years, West Virginia lived and died with the defense. We had a good defense, but man, we just, didn't have an offensive coordinator, didn't have a competent quarterback, just couldn't put it together. 50-50 football games last year, 4 of our 6 losses, 50-50 football games. We took the next step. We were competitive, but we were losing those close football games. And we were just one offensive coordinator and one quarterback away from taking the next step, and that's being competitive and winning those 50-50 football games. Well, in the offseason, it looked like Neil Brown made some really good moves. Number one, he got Graham Harrell, the offensive coordinator. Probably the best move as far as getting an offensive coordinator available at the time. And then that attracted JT Daniels. My goodness, the hopes of West Virginia fans went through the roof, including mine. I feel like an idiot now because I predicted West Virginia to go 9-3, bare minimum 8-4, with a chance to go 10-2. Man, what a bonehead prediction that was. I look like an absolute fool, a homer for calling that. But if you rewind in time, there was reasons why all of this expectations and high hopes, because we addressed the weaknesses. Nobody thought that the defense was going to fall off a cliff because that hadn't happened before. From 2020 to 2021, we lost the best safety in the nation, Tyke Smith, to Georgia, and a few other key pieces. A couple of cornerbacks. And our defense was fine last year. It wasn't elite like it was in 2020, but it was fine. So, yeah, in the offseason, we lose Hakeem Mesidor, but we still have Dante Stills. So, the defensive line, it's going to be fine, right? I mean, it's been okay. But overall, we give up too many yards, too many points, and we are out of football games by halftime now. Texas and Texas Tech, the game was over by halftime. Halftime. And I know we had a shot with the Texas Tech game because we were in field goal range. JT Daniels decides to take a shot in the end zone, and I've watched that play over and over again. Some people disagree with me. I think JT put that in a good spot. It's just the DB made a tremendous athletic play. I mean, fully extended off his back feet. And it's one of those plays. And we came up with no points. The game was over whenever that happened. The game was over. Our defense can't keep us in any football games. It's all up to the offense. So whenever our offense has an off game, it's over. Absolutely over. So it's time to move on. And the person that I'm bringing on tonight, I have to give him credit. Voice of MoTown, Brad Smith, he's been ahead of this way more than I was as far as Neil Brown. He actually, I think his actual prediction for this season was 5-7. He called the Kansas loss. I mean, this is before the Backyard Brawl, people. This is a preseason. He called the Kansas loss. He called the Pitt loss. He called the Texas loss. He called the Texas Tech. Every loss that we've had so far, he called up to this point in time. So I got to give him credit on that. And this guy takes a lot of heat because he does point out a lot of negatives. A lot of people accuse him of clickbait. That's, people use that term way too much when they don't even know what it means. Like, look up the term clickbait before you start using it like that. It's ridiculous. Anyways, he gets labeled clickbait. He gets labeled the pot stir, all that stuff. But, I mean, he almost foretold this was going to happen. It's like he knew something that the rest of us didn't know. But we didn't like it because we want to stay positive. And he gets labeled not a true mountaineer because of some of the stuff he says, which I've talked to the guy. We talk outside of YouTube, and he's actually a diehard West Virginia fan. He just doesn't like what he sees at West Virginia. And I think a lot of fans fall into the category of we don't want to see it. We see it, but we don't want to see it because we want our team to be successful. And so he gets labeled the bad guy, the clickbait guy, the pot stirrer. But I'm telling you, he's been on top of this story before day one. Before day one. So here he is, Brad Smith, the voice of MoTown. What's going on, buddy?
GBD, what's up, man?
Can't complain, man. Well, I can, but I've already done all that stuff.
Yeah, I was listening a minute ago. You said that I predicted 5-7. I actually predicted 3-9 this year.
Oh, I thought you predicted 5-7.
No, 3-9. I don't think we win another game the rest of the year.
I think we can win one, and it's either going to be Iowa State or Oklahoma. So 4-8. No, what are we at? Yeah, 4-8. 4-8.
We could. I think Oklahoma beats us. Iowa State, if we were at home, maybe, but not on the road at Iowa State.
Right.
So.
Well, I'm hoping. So here's the way I'm looking at things. Okay, this season is a wash. It's done. It's over with. Neil Brown needs to go. But I am hoping because Oklahoma does look vulnerable, and West Virginia somehow pulls off a stupid win over Baylor because of some nonsense that happened. Hopefully that can happen against Oklahoma. And at least we get that monkey off our back because we're not going to have many more opportunities to beat Oklahoma. So I think this is probably the best, opportunity we're going to have to beat them. They're kind of down. Yeah, we suck, but it's in Morgantown. Maybe we can take advantage of that. maybe that's the one game where we can put over 50,000 people in the stands, because the rest of the games we're going to be lucky to get 40,000 in the stands.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Hey, man, before we get started talking about Neil Brown and stuff, I just want to say real quick that I think what you're doing here on your YouTube channel, it's a really important work that you're doing. The West Virginia media, I'm going to go on a little tangent here about the West Virginia media for a second, if you don't mind. But
Go ahead.
what I think a lot of people are starting to see is that the West Virginia media is only saying what West Virginia University wants them to say.
Yep.
And when you have people like you and on your YouTube channel, the most popular YouTube channel out there, and what we're doing at the Voice of Morgantown, I think it's super important work that we're doing. And I just want to tell you, man, I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, before I started my YouTube channel, of course, I already knew about your name and the heat that you got, and I jumped on board the bandwagon of putting heat on you. But then I got more and more into this, and I kind of understand now the work that you do. And now, instead of kind of projecting heat on you, it's like an understanding and a respect, because we're in the same line of work, and we don't fall under the umbrella of we're going to say what they want us to say. Instead, we're going to say what we actually see, even if they don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, at West Virginia University, man, if you say anything out of line, you're removed. They take your credentials away, and
Yeah.
so that's not what we do here in the United States. That's what we do. That's what they do in North Korea. That it's controlled media, and that's not what our country's about. And it's shocking that people in the state of West Virginia put up with it for as long as they have.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. The biggest problem with West Virginia, not just the university, but in a lot of areas in the state, is um, clans, cliques, and good old boys clubs. That's what controls a lot of the higher ups, not just at West Virginia University, but a lot of those big businesses, and that it kind of stifles the lower guys who are trying to grow. And it's one of the biggest problems as far as why West Virginia's economy is so bad, because it put all its eggs in the baskets of coal mining, which I am not disrespecting that job at all. That is backbreaking work, thankless work. Those guys are true warriors. But the state of West Virginia did not approach the growth of business like it should have. And it's kind of mirrored at West Virginia University, kind of the same situation where it's the good old boys club. And if we don't accept you, then you're an outsider and we don't recognize you.
Yeah, and there's no accountability because of that. You listen to Neil Brown's press conferences. I don't know if you. Well, I'm sure you heard his press conference after our last loss at Texas Tech. There wasn't there wasn't one tough question. There wasn't anything other than, hey, what happened, and then Neil Brown said the same stuff he says after every game. It's a lack of accountability, and it's really it's to me it's the communications department's issue, and they to me are one of the biggest problems that we have right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the biggest things that's been exposed at West Virginia this year is depth. West Virginia has no depth. So those frontline people, when they make mistakes, they're not held accountable because, they're scared to put in the backups because there's such a big drop off in talent from the starters to the backup. Well, in order for those backups to get better, they need game experience. And we've been in 2 blowouts where they had opportunities to get some experience, whether it was us blowing out, well, 4 altogether, 2 us blowing out and 2 us getting blown out. And I know in Towson, that was a different story. A lot of people did get experience. But Virginia Tech, we were blowing out in the fourth quarter. I think the last half of that, we could have put in a lot of backups and we'd been just fine. Virginia Tech is that bad. And then in the Texas Tech game, I mean, the game was over by the fourth quarter, and both the Texas and the Texas Tech game. So I'm trying to figure out why we're not giving the backups more experience as well. I mean, what reason does Nico Marco have to stay at West Virginia right now?
Well, it's been the same thing since Neil Brown's been here. He kept Jarrett Deggy in for far too long. He kept him in for 3 years or 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And not only did we lose with Jarrett Deggy, when it was clear that Jarrett Deggy was not a Power 5 conference quarterback, we also didn't have an opportunity to develop our young quarterbacks. And so,
Right.
again, that's one of the major issues that I've had with Neil Brown. I mean, one of many that I've had with Neil Brown since he's been here.
Yeah. John Waffle, who is actually a Pitt subscriber over here at Golden Blue Dude, says, I believe he's talking to you. Thank you for the donation, John. He says, sue for freedom of press. That's actually ridiculous. I'm sure that West Virginia University has all those loopholes covered to where they can't get sued for that. As much as we hate what they do, they know what they're doing, even though it's shady. That's how I can put it. Quick reminder to everybody in the comment section, anybody that's watching, make sure to hit the like button, even if you don't like me or you don't like Brad or you don't like West Virginia. It just helps the video hit the YouTube algorithm, gets it suggested more people click on it, and that's how we grow our audience. So you're not just helping me and Brad, but you're also helping yourself because it grows the audience, and we can have more trash talk and arguments, because that's what I don't know about you, man, but that's what my show is all about. I actually encourage trash talks and disagree, not like fighting or anything like that, but everybody rubbing everybody's back and getting along. That actually gets kind of boring. So I encourage trash talk. And just like John Waffle, guys, if y'all have a question or a comment or a troll, hey, you want to make fun of me or West Virginia? Right now, I'm telling you, right now it's open season on Golden Blue Dude and West Virginia. So if you want to get our attention and you want your comment thrown on the screen, hit the super chat button. It's the little dollar sign that you see in the bottom right hand corner. Anything you put in that super chat, as long as it's YouTube appropriate, will be thrown on the screen. It will be read, addressed. If it's a question, we'll answer it to the best of our ability, and it'll be on the screen just like you see John Waffles. So I wanted to move on to what I'm hearing to see if it's the same thing as what you're hearing. I talked to Kuz about it the other night, and the guys that he talked to, the sources he talks to, saying the same exact thing. There's a lot of buzz with our sources. I don't know about actually in Morgantown, because I'm not listening to West Virginia media right now. I'm just going to be quite frank and honest with you. But from what I'm hearing from my sources, Kuz is saying the same thing. The big buzz right now between all these sources who don't know each other is Hugh Freeze being pursued at West Virginia. What are you hearing on that front?
That's all I've heard for the last 5 days or so is about Hugh Freeze. And then I spoke to a Liberty insider tonight that made me think that maybe that's not going to happen. I'm going to post an article about it tomorrow morning on the Voice of Morgantown. And I can't get into it too much yet because I'm kind of finishing up talking to him about it. But yeah, it made me feel like after I spoke to him, I was like, man, we're not going to get Hugh Freeze.
Uh-oh. Well, I'll keep my eyes out for that. Are there any reasons that make you think that it could still happen?
Yeah, I think if West Virginia ponies up and pays him $6.5 million, like we've heard, that and he has an opportunity to coach in a Power 5 conference, and Auburn doesn't want him, and I think he wants to play in the he wants to coach in the SEC probably more than in the Big 12. He's from Mississippi, so I think he probably wants to coach somewhere in the South. If everything works out, I would love to have Hugh Freeze. I think he's by far our top choice, or should be our top choice.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I also wonder about West Virginia and how they're so concerned about image and Gordon Gee and Shane Lyons. They're afraid to bring someone like him in.
Yeah, if he was just coming off his Ole Miss bid, I would understand that. But I mean, he's done his time over there at Liberty and kept his nose clean. It's time for somebody to give him a shot. He's proven that he can win at any level. He did it at Arkansas State, Ole Miss, and now Liberty. And yes, he did a lot of shady things over there at Ole Miss. But if you look at now compared to then, what he did back then, 80% of that is covered under the NIL. And I know all the the call girls and all that stuff. That's the 20% that's not covered. But there's been some time and distance between that, and he hasn't really done anything like that. I think he deserves another chance. And it's funny that you mentioned Auburn, because the video that I did on this specifically, my biggest concern is Auburn coming to call him, because I know that Auburn has not just more money than West Virginia, way more money than West Virginia. So to me, I think Hugh Freeze is definitely going to have a choice. Brian Harsin is not cutting it at Auburn. He will be fired at the end of the season. they wanted to fire him this offseason. They did an investigation with his girlfriend on staff or whatever. So they were looking for reasons to fire, and they couldn't find it. So he's going to be gone after this season. So I really do think that Hugh Freeze is going to have a choice, and West Virginia better be one of those choices. We have to at least have our name in the hat, whether he chooses us or not. If we don't at least throw our name in the hat, then we're idiots. So to me, I'm looking at this like, all right, what does he want more? And what you just mentioned actually discourages me a little bit because I didn't think about the fact that, he's from Mississippi. Maybe he does want to get back to coaching in the SEC. That might be what tips the scale, because what I was looking at is, does he want to go into a place where he's going to get paid more money, but he's going to have a lot more pressure and stress put on him, because Auburn wants to win, and they want to win now, not just win. Like, they want to compete for the SEC. They want to be, mentioned in the playoffs, make the playoffs, win a national championship every once in a while. So there's going to be tremendous pressure put on him. So even though he's going to get paid a lot more money, is it worth the stress that's going to come with the job? And then with West Virginia, you're going to make less money. But if they hire Hugh Freeze, I think he would be given the key to the kingdom. If he can get us to 8-4 in 3 years, then he's going to be, a hero. And it's just not going to be as much stress. So what you mentioned earlier about, his roots and maybe his desire to coach in the SEC, that might be the tipping point that actually steers him towards Auburn. And if that happens, then hopefully we have some backup candidates. I'm thinking like a Tom Herman, a Lance Leipold over there at Kansas. Two names we need to absolutely avoid. Number one, Paul Chryst, the coach that got fired at Wisconsin. He had success over there, but his offense is boring, and I don't think it would translate well for West Virginia. He does good on defense, but West Virginia in the Big 12, I just don't like how his offense would fit in the Big 12. The second name is Jimbo Fisher. We need to avoid that name at all costs. I think he's been overhyped, overblown, and all the money that he's been paid and all the money that he spent over there at Texas A&M, he's done absolutely nothing. He has been a bust.
Yeah, so I agree with you. Hugh Freeze is our top choice by far. I think if he doesn't work out, what I think is encouraging is that West Virginia University seems to be set on hiring a coach that is proven and that can get the job done. The names that I've heard, not only Hugh Freeze but Matt Rule, the former coach of Carolina and Baylor, and Temple. Dave Clawson, the head coach at Wake Forest, who was the ACC Coach of the Year last year, and Dino Babers at Syracuse as well. They're proven coaches that can get it done. So I just hope that we don't end up with another Neil Brown.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm scared. If this fiasco hadn't happened, then I'd probably be okay with West Virginia going after a Jamie Chadwell over there at Coastal Carolina. Maybe a Sean Clark over at Appalachian State. But people forget whenever West Virginia got Neil Brown that he was at the top of the pecking order as far as the hottest name in the group of 5 head coaches. And, we already tried and we failed at that. I don't think West Virginia needs to continue to pursue that avenue. Like, it didn't work. It's time to move on. So for me, it's 2 things. Number one, first and foremost, get a guy that not only has experience in the Power 5, but has had experience success in the Power 5. All right. And if you can't find a guy like that, then you need a guy that has roots in West Virginia and wants West Virginia to do really, really well. I would be okay with Rich Rod coming back. I know there's a lot of Rich Rod haters out there, and they don't want him back at all costs. And, maybe the boosters would have something to do with that. I'm not sure how much pull the boosters would have as far as, not allowing Rich Rod to come back. So it's either, and there's no in between, and there's no choice after. It's either get a coach that has experience, success at the Power 5 level, or a coach that is firmly rooted in West Virginia. And a name that comes to mind would be Jamil Adai, as far as giving a guy that doesn't have any head coach experience a chance if we can't get one of those bigger names that does have experience in success. I think a big mistake that Neil Brown made was promoting Jordan Leslie over Jamil Adai at defensive coordinator. I think that's still biting us in the rear end.
Jamil Adai has the highest ceiling of anyone, in my opinion. Any of the coaches. He is a program changer. He is an incredible recruiter. He's a mountaineer. I would love. I know it's a risky, and I don't think that Shane Lyons is going to do it by any means. But I think Jamil Adai would be an outstanding choice. And I agree. And I've said this 100 times that him hiring his buddy Jordan Leslie instead of giving Jamil Adai the defensive coordinator job was, I mean, he's made a lot of mistakes, but that's in his top 5 for sure.
Definitely. And I think one other name that I would give consideration, and it's actually gained some traction, is Tony Gibbs over there at NC State. I mean, a few days ago, he even beat out West Virginia for one of our recruits in our own backyard. So those are the two names as far as not, high-ranking head coaches that have had success in the Power 5 in the past that I would give a chance to. And I'm sorry, I'm one of these guys where I would give Rich Rod another chance. I think that the offense that he ran and the way he recruited for that offense would work just fine. And he didn't have success after West Virginia. Well, it's because what he didn't fit where he went. And I think if he came back to West Virginia, it would pick up right where it left off. Now, it would take a couple years just like it did in the beginning, but I think it would work for West Virginia because the biggest thing that I do not understand at West Virginia right now is what we are and what are we recruiting for. Because if you look back when Rich Rod was at West Virginia, he knew exactly what type of offense he wanted to run, and he recruited specific for that offense. What in the world are we doing? What kind of offense are we going for? And are we targeting the players that fit our offense? Because it looks like a mess out there. We have athletes all over the field. We have good athletes, but for some reason, they're not meshing together as a puzzle. They're not fitting into whatever kind of offense we're trying to run. It's very frustrating. I don't understand it.
Yeah, we have no identity. And I Rich Rod, to me, he's more disagree with me, but also
Hey, Brad, your connection is a little bad right now. You're cutting out a little bit.
1 second.
That was better.
Okay, you got me?
Yeah, I got you. Hey, it's just normal troubles of live show. You're good, man. Yeah, we got you. You're good. Are you one of the people that would be okay with Rich Rod coming back? I think we lost him again. Yep, we lost him again. He'll be back. I think he's down in Florida, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, there we go. We got you, man. We got you. You good? Might be getting his mic set up, but I'm not against Rich Rod coming back. I know there's a lot of boosters who do pour in money towards West Virginia that are firmly against bringing back Rich Rod because of what he did in West Virginia. But really, he didn't really do anything to West Virginia. Something that people don't realize is he actually asked for a raise for his assistants so he could keep all of his assistant coaches together. West Virginia said no. So he went to Michigan where they could give him a raise and his assistants a raise. So there's some things out there that have been spread around that people have taken as fact that really are not facts. And even the Rich Rod thing is something that I even bought into it because if you look at it at face value, oh man, we must have thrown the Pitt game because he was eyeing Michigan, and he just left West Virginia out of the blue and took that big paying job at Michigan. So he flat out screwed West Virginia. That's not what happened. And if it came down to that, then I'd probably second guess what I'm saying right now as far as wanting Rich Rod back. But it's the same thing with Dana Holgorsen. A lot of people think that either West Virginia screwed Dana Holgorsen over or Dana Holgorsen screwed West Virginia over. That's not what happened at all. What happened with Dana Holgorsen is he asked for a raise at West Virginia. West Virginia declined, so he went to Houston, and Houston gave him the money. Now, I'm glad he's gone because I think Dana Holgorsen is the reason we're in the situation we're in, and Neil Brown has just perpetuated it and made it worse. So we need a coach. This is why I'm high on Hugh Freeze, Tom Herman, and Lance Leipold. I understand that West Virginia might be just a stepping stone for those bigger names, but West Virginia needs a coach that can get us out of the ditch immediately. We don't need a coach that has a 5 to 10 year plan. We'll be 7-5 by year 5. No, we don't need that. We need Doug out of this hole immediately. So even if we are a stepping stone for these bigger name coaches, get us back to where we need to be, then go take the money, and we can hire a guy that can keep us where we're at. Does that make sense, Brad?
Absolutely. Can I throw one more name at you that I
Yeah.
really like? Kurt Signetti from James Madison. I know he's kind
Heard
of a he's had a tremendous success at James Madison. He's a former West Virginia quarterback. He's a former assistant coach under Nick Saban. I think he would be an outstanding choice as well if we can't get one of the bigger names.
Oh, yeah, and I predict that James Madison will eventually be a Power 5 team. They're rising really, really fast. This is their first year as an FBS team, and they were ranked in Week 7. They have bigger boosters than people realize. Their fan base, really the only thing that's holding them back right now is their fan base isn't quite big enough, but it's growing at a rapid pace. And for an I mean, you even look at their stadium for an FCS program. They have a magnificent stadium, and the more money that those guys make, the more they're going to invest in their football program. And we could be talking about James Madison in the FBS, 10, 15 years from now. I firmly believe that. So I think, I haven't thought about that name, but the more I think about it, the more it makes sense because you look at what he's done at James Madison. He has roots at West Virginia. He's played for West Virginia. So you know that he bleeds blue and gold, and he's not going to do stupid things that would put West Virginia at risk. That's a good name right there. I like it. What do you think about Tom Herman? Because I'm getting a lot of backlash for Tom Herman. What's your thoughts on Tom Herman at West Virginia?
Yeah, man, I don't get that. I don't get Tom Herman. He didn't have success at Texas really, and I don't see him as a top 10 candidate in my opinion.
Well, I disagree with that. I know he had a letdown year after his 10-win season and went 8-5, and then in the COVID year he went 7-3, which is actually pretty good for the COVID year. And they were one play away from winning the Big 12 in 2020 in the COVID year. And the reason he got fired at Texas wasn't because of lack of success. It's because he butted head with the boosters over there. People don't realize the boosters over there at Texas are in a whole different atmosphere when you compare them to boosters in other places. Sure, boosters pull strings everywhere, but they're basically the boss over there at Texas. And he just didn't get along with them, and so he had to go. They fire him and bring in Steve Sarkisian. So that made it even like, what? What?
Yeah,
that made no sense.
Yeah, I actually didn't realize his record was that good. I just looked it up. For some reason, I was thinking he had a couple of under 500 records, but
that was the Texas media, man. I'm telling you,
yeah,
they try to brainwash people.
Yeah,
try to make it seem like it was a good fire, but it wasn't. It was a terrible. It wasn't that it was just a terrible fire, but firing him and bringing in Steve Sarkisian, it was the combination of that. You're like, what are you doing? So, I like Tom Herman. He recruits at an elite level. He actually does get along with the players, unlike the Texas media tried to make people believe. And it came down to the boosters. I think he'd be able to get West Virginia, especially, he's had success in the Big 12. I know Houston's not in the Big 12, but it's in the state of Texas. So he knows the state of Texas. Maybe he would be able to help us shore up some recruiting pipelines in the state of Texas or get one started if we don't have one. And then, of course, he did have success at Texas, so he knows what it takes to have success in the Big 12. I kind of like him at West Virginia.
Yeah, you've convinced me, man. I'll put him in my top 10. I didn't think of it that way before, but yeah, absolutely. He's top 10.
And I know this last one is a little more risky, but Lance Leipold at Kansas. And I know they've taken a dip because they lost their quarterback. But if you look at his offense, the best way I can explain it is it's 3 offenses in one. It's a triple option. So the defense has to be gap sound. They got to cover A gap, B gap, C gap. You don't know if the dive, the sweep, or the draw is going to come. Okay. And then on top of that, you have the RPO. So all that, now you got to worry about the quarterback running the ball because you have a dual threat quarterback and he will tuck it and run. And number 3, spread offense as well. So the quarterback can run it and pass it, and you got to worry about 2 other backs that can gash you on the B and C gap. I like his potential. I don't know if we can grab him because I think he's going to be catapulted to a lot of people's list as far as grabbing a coach. But
I
I
see
think he'd
him
be a
at.
good hire at West Virginia.
I love Lance Leopold. I would put him at. I think he'll end up at Nebraska or Wisconsin, though. He just seems that seems like more of a natural fit for him.
Yeah, I actually lean more towards Wisconsin. Something's telling me it's not going to be Nebraska. It's going to be Wisconsin. So, yeah, I look for him to move to Wisconsin. But I do think that he's one of those names that West Virginia needs to at least try to pursue. At least.
It's interesting, not only Leopold but also Aranda and all of these Big 12 coaches who are, Sonny Dykes, all of these new Big 12 coaches. They've proven that you can win in the first season, or the first couple of seasons, and that's something that a lot of West Virginia fans have been saying is that firing Neil Brown's going to set us back for 3 years, and not necessarily, not if you get the right coach in.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you're in the SEC, maybe, but not in the Big 12. You can win in the first year in the Big 12. Let me ask you this. So, from what I'm hearing with my sources, as far as the heat to fire Neil Brown is at an all-time high. A lot of people are basically saying it's a done deal. The only question right now is how high are they going to have to go to get the job done? Because what I'm hearing is that if Shane Lyons does not get on board with this, then he's going to be fired as well. The only issue that maybe could come up with that is I know that Gordon Gee loves Shane Lyons. So how high are we going to have to go to clean house and get rid of Neil Brown?
Yeah, I put a tweet out the other day and I said, if Shane Lyons won't fire Neil Brown, then Shane Lyons should be fired. And if Gordon Gee won't fire Shane Lyons, then maybe Gordon Gee needs to be fired because somebody needs to be held accountable. And to me, number one, it should be Neil Brown. I think that extension that Lyons gave Brown and the buyout that he gave him, that should be the death blow for him as an athletic director. That's going to cost the university millions and millions and millions of dollars. And there's not one other occupation where you can get away with just costing your employer millions of dollars, and really put the university in a really tough situation. So, and to be honest, I don't really know if Shane Lyons has done a whole lot since he's been at West Virginia University.
No. I mean,
So,
he invests a little bit in the facilities, and we have great player facilities, but that's it.
right.
That's it. That's all he's done.
Yeah, and same deal with the basketball program's gone downhill too since he's been the athletic director.
Yeah. And a lot of people wanted to throw that on Huggins. Oh man, he's losing his touch, this and that. I don't agree with that at all. He's had success with not a lot of talent. I know we had a down year last year, but I think we're going to have a nice bounce back year this year in basketball. When I say bounce back, I don't think like a Final Four type of team, but big dance, maybe get to the second round type of team, something to build on. That's one thing about West Virginia basketball. At least we have a coach that we can trust. We don't have some, freshman in there that doesn't know what he's doing. Hopefully he's the right hire. Bob Huggins has taken West Virginia to heights it hasn't seen in a very long time when it comes to basketball. And even though we've only been to the Final Four once, we've had, several Elite Eights, many Sweet 16s, and countless big dance appearances. So that's one thing I'll say about our basketball. I trust the head coach that we have. I know that you've had some things that you've said about Bob Huggins that you didn't particularly like. What do you think? Do you think he's running out of shelf life?
I think we're going to have a really bad season this year. We have 7 newcomers. They haven't had an opportunity to really mesh, and I don't think we're even close to as talented as we were last year. I hate to say it because I want a winning season more than anything at West Virginia, whether it's in football or basketball or any sport at this point. And we just don't really have a score this year. I think they're Huggins type players, but the talent level is not Big 12 talent level, in my opinion.
Well, when is West Virginia going to figure out how to use the NIL when it comes to basketball and football?
That's true. Yeah. Um, yeah. And he got and Huggins did all that he could. He went out and got a great transfer class.
Yep.
Um, I just don't know that it's enough. Who's going to score?
I do like the fact that Emmett Matthews came back, and if he can get hot, then there's your score right there. But the only problem with Emmett Matthews is sometimes he's hot, sometimes he's cold, and when he is cold, who's going to be our scorer? So that's really the biggest question. I think our defense is going to be great. I think our rebounding is going to be great. But what you just said, I mean, that's the most important thing in basketball is putting the ball in the basket, right? So who's going to be our main scorer? I'm just hoping Emmett Matthews gets his stroke back and he can be our scorer because whenever he did have his stroke, the dude could flat out ball. But something happened along the way where he lost it, transferred to Washington, figured out, man, these fans ain't worth a crap. Transferred back to West Virginia. Let's hope that he gets his stroke back. I think that's our biggest chance of having a good score is Emmett Matthews.
Yeah, I mean he's an incredible athlete. I just wonder about his consistency.
Right. Exactly. And then there was the whole you remember the whole hair thing? My gosh.
Yeah. Yep. Hey,
It
I
was
saw
fun to talk
somebody.
about though. It's fun to talk about though.
Yeah, I saw somebody mention in the comments whether we could afford the contract buyout for Neil Brown, and I don't know if
Yeah.
you saw. I don't know if you saw the report from 24/7 Sports, not your sports, not the fake 24/7 Sports, the real 24/7 Sports, the national 24/7 Sports. They said that buying out, paying $16 million for Neil Brown is not an issue for the university at all, and that that's something that West Virginia can absolutely afford.
Well, okay. Speaking of that, number one, Neil Brown said himself, I don't know when the timing was, if it was this offseason or right after last season, but there was a time where he straight up said, if I'm not getting the job done, I will resign. So my first thought is he a man of his word? The second thing is people don't realize that it can be negotiated. They can negotiate it down to around 12 million, 13 million, something like that. And then the third thing is they don't pay them in one lump sum. And if they do fire him with the buyout, then he can't coach somewhere else or the buyout's null and void. So it's not like, oh man, if West Virginia fires Neil Brown, then a week later we're out $16.5 million. That's not how it works. Number one, hopefully he's a man of his word and resigns, and then we won't owe him anything. But if that's not the case, then that's where negotiations come in, and then the last phase, payments. West Virginia can afford it is the bottom line.
Yeah, that seems to be the major obstacle that in people's minds about the contract in terms of firing Neil Brown, and it's not really an obstacle at all. There's really, at this point, no obstacles except for Shane Lyons doesn't want to be embarrassed because of the hire that he made, and the extension that he gave Brown.
Yeah, and we're not talking out of both sides of our mouth because whenever he did extend Neil Brown, ridiculous after 1 year of success, and then the massive buyout. Yes, it is a ridiculous buyout. We are not going back and eating our words and saying, no, it's actually not that bad of a buyout. It's a ridiculous buyout, but it's still doable.
And Shane Lyons at the time said that the reason he gave him that extension and the buyout that he gave him is because he heard Neil Brown's name being mentioned for other jobs. And I have a hard time believing that these other
Yeah,
schools would have ever hired Neil Brown under any circumstance when he was 11-11. He was talking about what were the two schools? Auburn was one, and South Carolina was the other one. And neither one of those schools you could have hired Neil Brown with an 11-11 record at West Virginia. I mean,
yeah,
it's just such a garbage excuse.
it really is. And when you said it, it immediately angered me because not just West Virginia, but there's a lot of teams across the entire nation that use that excuse, do the extension, and then they end up shooting themselves in the foot. Biggest example, not West Virginia, that I can think of was Florida whenever they extended Dan Mullen after 2020, and they absolutely flopped in the bowl. And I was telling Florida fans, that's going to be your offense. You're going to suck in 2020. No, you're crazy. What happened? They sucked. They got fired. They had to eat a lot of money. Same thing is happening to Michigan State. Last year, Michigan State had a great year, but I knew they were going to take a massive step back this year because they had no defense, and nothing told me that it was going to get any better. And their offense was basically Kenneth Walker, and he's gone. And if you watch Michigan State games, which I watch all college football, they had a lot of things that bounced their way. They should have lost to Michigan. Those refs were very shady, and a touchdown was freaking taken off the board from Michigan because of a phantom foul. My point is, they gave him an extension based off of 1 year, $100 million extension, and they started out 3-4 as well. But the excuse, oh man, we heard, this team wanted to hire him and that team, it's bull crap. You're just using that excuse because you think that you've caught lightning in a bottle and you think it's worth extending, and you haven't thought it out. And it's going to end up biting you in the butt. It has bit West Virginia in the rear end, and it bit Florida in the rear end, and I think it's going to bite Michigan State in the rear end. And I just hate that West Virginia has to be in that crowd. I feel bad for other teams that it happens to, but now it's happening to us, and it just makes me mad.
Yeah. I like interacting with the fans. Is that okay? Looking at some of the comments here, somebody said, "What do I think of Tony Gibson?" I like Tony Gibson a lot. Again, he's one of those fringe candidates, in my opinion, that doesn't have the head coaching experience, but I think he would do an outstanding job at West Virginia as well.
Yeah. What do you think about the fans? Which there's not a lot of them, but I've seen a few fans say, "Bring back Dana Holgorsen." I'm totally against it. Having said that,
yeah,
I would actually be okay with Dana Holgorsen as an offensive coordinator. I think the dude is a friggin' genius when it comes to the offense. But head coach, no.
Yeah.
What about you?
He's not a head coach. He's never been a head coach.
No.
He's an offensive coordinator, and he should have always been an offensive coordinator. So I put his chances of coming back to West Virginia at about 0.
Yeah, that would be one of the dumbest things we could ever do. And I'm actually hearing it from Houston fans already. They're like, man, kind of right about this guy. He's crazy because a couple of weeks ago, he actually got in a cussing match with fans exiting the field after a loss. They cussed at him. He cussed at them. Back and forth, like that's immature. He is a loose cannon. He's got issues with drinking, and it spills onto his coaching. And whenever he comes up against a team that's either as good or as talented or better, he loses 9 times out of 10. Now, he can beat up on lower caliber teams that don't have the talent, blah, blah, blah. Last year, a.k.a. 12-2, he played a bunch of East Carolinas and Tulsas and Memphises and whatever, got blasted by Texas Tech, avoided UCF and avoided Cincinnati until the AAC championship, got blasted by them, and barely beat a 6-7 Auburn. And then this year, he's getting blasted by all these good teams because their schedule is a little bit tougher than what it was last year. So, like, I don't know what to say to convince these morons that want him back. Like, use common sense. I've explained everything to a T. Use common sense. That'd be right up there with bringing in Jimbo. I think that's a great segue to that too, because I'm hearing a lot of fans talking about bringing in Jimbo. How big of a disaster would it be to bring in Jimbo?
It's hard to say. He is he's an accomplished head coach. He's won a national championship. I don't know that he's a great head coach, but I wouldn't mind seeing him come back. Come back home. I think it would be a good story. It's better than Neil Brown.
That's a good point. That last part's a good point. Matador Mike, thank you for the donation. Says, I've been on your StreamYard before. I tried multiple times to warn you about the defense at Texas Tech. West Virginia is good enough to beat TCU, West Virginia by 2 scores. So that's a Texas Tech fan promoting Texas Tech and saying that they just whooped a really good West Virginia. No. even if West Virginia does beat TCU, it's going to be it will be a close win, and it would only be because we're in Morgantown. And the weirdest thing is, in 2020, we were a road team. We actually won more games on the road than home. But last year and this year, we've turned into that, we can have a decent game at home, but whenever it comes to the road, we're getting absolutely blasted. So the only thing that I think gives us a shot, which I don't think we win, is being at home. In fact, the only home game that I think we do win is Oklahoma. And it's just because Oklahoma is having a down year. And maybe I'm just wishing for it too much because we're not going to have many opportunities to beat Oklahoma before they leave the Big 12. What do you think about that comment, though? Because it made me kind of roll my eyes a little bit.
Yeah, I think TCU is the opposite of West Virginia. They're incredibly well coached. They're fundamentally sound. They are a really solid team. And I'm shocked that we're only underdogs by 7.5 points.
Yeah, it's weird.
I thought it would be 17 plus, even at home.
Well, hold on. Think about it this way. So I didn't know this till a couple of years ago. What Vegas does is right off the bat, the home team is awarded 11, and then they go from there. So basically, if West Virginia was on the road, you'd be exactly right. West Virginia would be like an 18 and a half point underdog. So it's only being at home that's what's brought it down. Now, does it mean it's going to be that close? No, that's just how Vegas works.
Yeah. Somebody asked if Neil Brown can stay, if he gets to stay, if we get to 5 wins. That's an absolute no.
What?
We're not. He's not going to stay with 5 wins. And from what I've heard, he's pretty much done at this point, regardless of what happens for the rest of the year. Even if we win out, which we're not going to do.
I would say the only thing that even gives him a glimmer, and I'm not even saying it secures, but a glimmer of hope is if we win 5 in a row. But to your point, what I'm hearing is doesn't matter. He's done. And I'll take it a step further. I've heard that he's accepted it. Like, he's not even like, oh, man, give me time, man. I'm going to work on this, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, you're right. It's not working. I'll be on my way at the end. So it seems like it's almost decided, and maybe they're just waiting until the end of the season whenever the buyout drops. Could that be a mistake, and we could be missing up on some of these bigger names that we have a chance at?
Well, I think that they're communicating with these other bigger names through back channels, and from what I've heard, at least. And so they're reaching out to these coaches and making sure that there's interest there. I don't know that waiting until the end of the season is going to hurt their chances at a Matt Rule or a Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, Matt Rule is another name that would be really good. He's had success in the Big 12, and he brought a Baylor who was reeling after the scandals and took them to 11 wins in what, year 2? So he can have immediate success in the Big 12. I think he would be a perfect fit at West Virginia as well. I want to remind you, Brad, that your time is valuable. So whenever you need to go, don't feel like you have to hang around here till midnight or anything. I might go a little bit longer, but I know you got stuff to do. So whenever you feel like you need to leave, I'm okay with that. I just wanted you to know that. I'm not holding you by the nose over here. Okay, buddy?
I appreciate it, man. I'm going to roll. Thank you so much for having me on, and keep doing great work, man.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming on.
All right, later.
Later, bud. Voice of MoTown, Brad Smith. Very controversial, labeled clickbaitish, whatever. But, I mean, I've learned that. It comes with the territory. When you start saying things that people don't agree with, wait a minute there, golden blue dude. And now you're just trying to stir the pot. No, I'm just saying what I see. I'm not here to, it's going to be okay, guys. We're going to be fine. Suck your thumb, rock back and forth. Golden blue dude's here. Want to rock you to sleep. No, if something's up and it looks fishy, or I don't know, something needs to happen, it's time to talk. It's time to talk. So I appreciate Voice of MoTown coming on. Y'all go check him out online. He's got a great presence over there at West Virginia, and West Virginia media doesn't recognize him, doesn't recognize us, doesn't recognize Kuz's Corner, doesn't recognize a lot of great West Virginia media outlets because we don't say what they want us to say. But that's okay, because we break through that wall and we're still growing, because honestly, controversy, people like controversy. So, we're going to keep, and it's not like you make stuff up just to, let's see, let's make them dance, guys. Let's make them dance. Let's make some, no, no, no. It's just, when something's not right, you can't just pat people on the back and say everything's going to be all right. Man, some people, I don't understand. And some of the stuff that he said, I didn't even know, as far as why the media kind of blackballed him. I didn't know all that stuff. And it makes sense, though, because what I said earlier about not just West Virginia University, but the economy of West Virginia, there is a lot of cliques, a lot of clans, a lot of good old boy groups up there that control and kind of put the lid on everybody. No, no, no. We're the big dogs. You can't go any higher than this. And unfortunately, it goes on at West Virginia as well. So hopefully we make the right decision. It seems like we're going to fire Neil Brown. So that's the right decision, number one. So the next thing is let's make the right hire to replace him. Hugh Freeze. All right. We need to have backups, though. Hugh Freeze, Matt Roll, Tom Herman, Lance Leipold. I mean, there's four options right there. And there's not four bigger brands that above West Virginia that need head coaches that all four of those would be gobbled up. So West Virginia they should be able to get at least one of those, right? At least one of those, you would think. Then again, it's West Virginia. You never know what's going to happen. You never know what kind of stupid decision is going to be made up there in Morgantown. And the stupid extension that he gave, the buyout, even though it is ridiculous, it's doable. It's just the fact of why it was given. We had 1 year of decent success, 6-4 in a COVID year, and we only got to 6-4 because of the bowl. There were a couple games that were canceled, so there was one game, the Oklahoma game, it was canceled. So we went 5-4 in the regular season. Then we beat Army in the Liberty Bowl, so we went 6-4. Oh man, 5-4 season, beat Army in the Liberty Bowl. Let's extend this guy to 2026 and give him a buyout. Dumb. It makes no sense when you think about it. But misery loves company. Michigan State, Florida, they did the same stupid things as well. See what some people are saying in the comments. My gosh, I can't stand some of these. Not you. I'm talking about some of the decisions. David says that's pretty sad when we are hoping we can beat Iowa State, and that's probably the only team left that we can. Yeah, I think if Iowa State came to Morgantown, we actually would. I think we'd beat Iowa State by a couple touchdowns if it was in Morgantown because Iowa State's not any good. Problem is, it's not Morgantown. It's at Iowa State. So I think Iowa State probably does beat us by a touchdown or 10 points. I mean, maybe it's the biggest chance we have of winning besides Oklahoma at home. I don't know. John Waffle, thank you for the donation, says, why was Lyons hired as the AD? That's a great question. I'm sure there's a story behind that. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I know that Oliver Luck moved on and he was the replacement, but I don't know why him specifically was hired. The reason the new AD was hired was because Oliver Luck moved on. But why it was Shane Lyons? No idea. I really don't know, guys. I really don't know. But I agree with a lot of people that are saying, if Lyons doesn't comply, then he needs to go too. And all the sources that I've talked to have said, yes, West Virginia is giving Shane Lyons a chance to comply. But if he doesn't, he's going to be fired too. And West Virginia already knows the replacement for him. So he's been given a chance. Hey, man, Neil Brown's got to go. You either do it or you're going to be fired too. But who knows how stupid he is, though? I mean, he was the one. He was the one that gave Neil Brown the extension after a 6-4 season. And I know I've been a Neil Brown supporter for longer than I should have been. But that doesn't mean that I agreed with his extension. No, I did not agree, especially to 2026 and then the buyout that Shane gave him. No, just because I supported him, probably out of desperation. I can admit that. I probably supported Neil Brown longer than I should out of desperation, just hoping that West Virginia has success, knowing that it's probably not going to work out. But man, I just, him doing that makes me believe that maybe he is stupid enough to not jump on board and get himself fired. Oh, man. I had a good time with Brad, though. Most of the time, well, not most of the time, but a lot of the time, me and Brad don't exactly agree on some things with West Virginia, but that doesn't mean that, we dislike each other. That's one thing that I don't understand about certain media personalities or even YouTube personalities. Like sometimes they'll disagree with each other, and then next thing you know, they just are bashing each other. And it's like, can you disagree without like acting like little kids? I don't know. Matador Mike, thank you for the donation. Says, I'm sending a Texas Tech mini helmet, one of the few Big 12 mini helmets that I'm missing. That's what I'm talking about. I'm sending a Texas Tech mini helmet at the end of season with a pocket helmet of all Texas schools. That's cool. Oh, wait, I didn't finish that sentence. With a pocket helmet of all the Texas schools Texas Tech beats. Okay. Nephew is equipment manager, might be signed J. Whoa. Well, I don't have any signed by like current, but I had Erin Alley. She sent this Ed Oliver signed Houston, and he plays for the Bills now. So yeah, man, awesome. But hey, if you can't, don't worry about it. We do need a Texas Tech mini helmet. So let's see. It's Texas Tech and who else? Why can I not think? Iowa State. We got both Kansas schools, West Virginia, Baylor, TCU, Oklahoma State. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There is one other school that we're missing that I cannot think of. Why? That always happens with the Big 12. It's probably the same school as usual. See, Texas Tech. Oh, Texas, duh, Texas. But Texas is leaving, so that's probably why I kind of forgot about them. Texas has one of the biggest fan bases in the nation, if not the biggest, and I don't have a Texas mini helmet yet, so that one kind of surprised me. But yeah, we definitely do need a Texas Tech mini helmet in the off season. Whatever mini helmets we don't have, I'll probably buy a few to add to the collection. But the reason and let me put that up there real quick. But the reason I got a PO box and encourage people to send stuff to to represent their teams and stuff is I wanted a YouTube channel where not only do you interact with the subscribers, through the comment section, through super chats, stuff like that, live shows, but a permanent interaction. So when you send something to go to Blue Dude in the PO box, like you are permanently part of Golden Blue Dude. And I know right now you don't see a lot of the stuff because we're under construction. The Pinwheel of Penance is not up right now. Trust me, it's all going to go back up. That's the reason why I got the PO box, and people have really answered the bell on that one. Awesome stuff. And I promise, you see the Texas sign. You send Texas stuff, I'm not going to turn it upside down and give it horns down, even though it's always horns down here. I'm not going to do that. So we got a Texas sign. It's right side up. We got the Pitt mini helmet. I didn't, put a pile of crap on it or anything like that. So, even though I dislike certain teams, I respect the fan bases because, whenever you have a YouTube channel, you start going outside your bubble. So before I had the YouTube channel, I'm a West Virginia fan. All I know are the West Virginia traditions, who we would like to play, our old rivalries that we miss that we want to play, stuff like that. When you get a YouTube channel and you start interacting with all these other fan bases, you're like, whoa. Fan bases are super, super different. And they're not just, oh, I don't like them. It's like those are actual people. They have cool traditions themselves. They have, different stadiums, different traditions, the pageantry, all that stuff. And it actually raises your level of respect for the fan bases that maybe you didn't respect before. I think that's the best way I can put it. And it's just being human as far as not respecting. People get on your nerves and you don't show respect. And, well, you know what I'm talking about. But when you have a YouTube channel and you have to interact with all of them, you start learning things that you didn't know and that you would have not found out had you not had a YouTube channel. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this live show. And like I say in every live show, my job isn't to be right all the time. I actually feel bad for people that, that's what makes them happy, being right. Because nobody's right all the time. So whenever they are wrong, it's like a gut shot. For me, it's about being entertaining while talking college football. So if you've forgotten about the misery of your team, whoever it is, maybe you're a Notre Dame fan, man, my team sucks this year. And you're watching the live show and you just kind of zoned out the Notre Dame issues or whatever team you're rooting for, then I've done my job. And, I can lay my head down saying, yep, did a good job again. Because that's what it's all about here at Golden Bluted. So it's about entertainment, talking about interesting things. And even with the whole conference realignment thing, I know a lot of the stuff's not going to happen. I know that. I just think it's interesting. So I try to put it in a way where it sounds like it could be realistic. Hey, you never know. And it's interesting to talk about. So just trying to give you an inside view of what goes on in my brain. Anyways, appreciate everybody stopping by. It was a great live show. Great turnout, guys. Great turnout. Good job. Everybody hit the like button on the way out. It still helps the video, even though we're not live anymore. Everybody that commented, the super chats, those donations really help the channel keep it going. This is what we do full time. So the donations are greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you for that. And tomorrow, another live show. Now, I know I said 10 o'clock, but we have one at the Voice of College Football, and I do it on multiple channels, including this one. So the live show is actually going to be at 8 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock. That was my mistake whenever I created this schedule. But everything else stays the same. Every Monday at 6 o'clock, every Tuesday at 7 o'clock, every Wednesday at 8 o'clock, and every Thursday at 9 o'clock. All of that is the same. All right, guys. Another Thursday in the books. Y'all have a good rest of your night, and we'll see you tomorrow on Friday at 8 o'clock.